The night began like any other, laughter echoing through crowded bars, neon lights flickering against the streets of Bogotá, and a young woman chasing dreams far bigger than the city she walked through. Ana Maria Castro was vibrant, fearless, and independent. The kind of person who believed she could read people, trust her instincts, and always find her way back home. But on March 4th, 2020, one decision, to step into a car with 3 men, would turn an ordinary night into a nightmare no one could have predicted. Hours later, she was found broken on a deserted road, her body telling a story her voice never could. And the 3 men who were with her? Each of them had a different version of the truth. Conflicting stories, missing pieces, and one haunting question lingered in the air. Did Ana Maria fall, or was she pushed? If you're new here, kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos. Let's start. Human connections are fragile, built on trust, affection, and unspoken limits. We meet others, grow attached, sometimes too quickly, overlooking subtle warning signs. We trust their words, are drawn in by their charm, yet seldom pause to question what lies beneath the courteous exterior. How well do we really know those we allow into our lives? Ana Maria Castro was born and raised in Bogotá, Colombia's capital. She was brought up in a close family with her mother, her older sister, and her father, who passed away a few years earlier. After his passing, the responsibility of leading the household naturally shifted to her mother, Nidia Romero. She consistently supported her daughters without being overbearing, allowing them the freedom to choose their own paths and make their own decisions. Ana Maria had a lively, open nature, easily standing out among her peers with her constant smile, outgoing attitude, and ability to start a conversation with almost anyone. She didn't like being alone and formed connections quickly. Her friends appreciated her honesty and readiness to help, while also respecting her strong character. Despite her sociable nature, she never allowed others to take advantage of her. One defining quality set Ana Maria apart: her independence. From an early age, she realized she didn't want to depend on anyone, not even her mother. As a teenager, she was already motivated to earn her own money. She disliked asking for help and preferred to achieve her goals through her own efforts. She dreamed of leaving her hometown to build a new life in the United States, and that dream became her purpose. Ana Maria was determined to gain an education, develop a skill, and find a way to make that move. She explored different options to determine what could take her there. Initially, she enrolled in a psychology program, but she soon realized she couldn't afford to spend years studying without a stable income. She then shifted direction, choosing a more practical path that would allow her to start working sooner. One of her ideas was to pursue a career as a professional makeup artist. It seemed like a practical choice. The work was in demand, didn't require years of study, and could generate income relatively quickly. She enrolled in courses and soon learned the fundamentals of makeup. At the same time, she became interested in healthcare and began training as a nursing assistant, aiming to keep her options open and expand her opportunities. Her mother supported her the entire time, offering quiet encouragement without stepping in. She knew Ana Maria wasn't someone who followed others' directions. Ana Maria made her own decisions. She wasn't only dreaming, she was actively working to make those dreams real. But a future filled with plans came to an abrupt stop one evening when Ana Maria Castro left home, saying she would return soon. No one could have imagined it would be the last time she walked the streets of the city she longed to leave. On the evening of March 4th, 2020, Ana Maria was at home. The day had been calm and uneventful. After lunch, she stayed in her room. Her mother, Nidia Romero, later said her daughter's mood appeared completely normal. There were no signs that this night would become the final chapter of her story. As evening set in, Ana Maria told her mother she was going out. She planned to meet Paul Naranjo, a young man she had a friendly connection with, though it seemed something more might have been developing between them. Nydia wasn't pleased about the outing. It wasn't the company that concerned her, but the timing. Her daughter had class the next day, and going into the city on a weekday didn't seem like a good idea. She advised her to stay home, but didn't insist. Ana Maria always made her own choices. Before leaving, she carefully got ready, chose her outfit, and did her makeup before heading out the door. She told her mother she wouldn't be gone long and would return soon. Those were the last words she ever said at home. Her destination was 116th Street in the Usaquén district, a popular area in Bogotá known for its lively bars and clubs, a common gathering place for the city's youth. Ana Maria met Paul Naranjo at one of these spots, but that was only the start of her night. She socialized with others, moved between bars, and by midnight, her blood alcohol level had risen significantly. At some point, she ran into an old acquaintance, Paula Ramirez. They had attended the same school, but it had been years since they last saw each other. Taking the chance, they exchanged numbers, talked, and reminisced. Paola quickly noticed that Ana Maria was intoxicated. At the time, it didn't seem like a major concern, but later that detail would become an important part of what followed. Around 11:30 p.m., Paola went to another bar and invited Ana Maria to join her. It took about half an hour to receive a reply. Ana Maria sent a message that was difficult to understand, but one thing was clear: she had run out of money. Paola, realizing her friend was likely heavily intoxicated, invited her over and assured her she would take care of her. Minutes later, Ana Maria arrived at the new bar, but she wasn't alone. She was accompanied by two men, Julian Northagen and Mateo Reyes. Paola felt uneasy about them, but chose not to voice it. Instead, she told the staff she was responsible for Ana Maria, so they would allow her inside. Once inside, Paola tried several times to persuade Ana Maria to leave with her, but she refused, wanting to stay with her new companions. Paola didn't feel comfortable leaving her behind, yet she knew she couldn't force her. As time passed, Paola made one final attempt. Her plan was straightforward: to get Ana Maria out of the party and away from the men she didn't trust. But when it was time to leave, Ana Maria refused once more. She made her final choice at 1:05 a.m. when Paul Naranjo's car pulled up outside the bar, waiting at the entrance. Julian Northagen was already inside, and a few minutes later, Mateo Reyes joined them. Paola made one last effort to stop her friend from leaving, but Ana Maria firmly declined. According to Paola, Mateo took Ana Maria by the hands and helped her into the vehicle before getting in himself. For a brief moment, Ana Maria looked back as if silently apologizing for her decision. Moments later, the car vanished into the night. That was the last time Paola Ramirez ever saw her. Not long after, Ana Maria was discovered on Route 89 with serious injuries, while those who had been in the car later provided conflicting accounts of what had occurred. The four people involved had very different relationships with one another, and those dynamics would become important in piecing together the events of that night. Paul Naranjo and Ana Maria had known each other for some time. He had been trying to pursue her, showing interest and making efforts to get closer, though their relationship never developed into anything serious. Still, Paul seemed to hope that night could change things. Julian Ortega also knew Ana Maria, but they weren't particularly close. He was more of a friend to Paul and had supported his attempts to build a connection with her. Mateo Reyes ended up in the group almost by coincidence. He was friends with Julian, but that night he acted as if he had known Ana Maria for a long time. His presence and behavior would later become a significant factor in what followed as the car moved through the quiet nighttime streets of Bogotá. Tension inside the vehicle began to build. Paul felt frustrated that Ana Maria had ended up in the car with Mateo. He had been hoping for a more private, one-on-one evening. According to his version of events, there was initially little conversation, but as the ride continued, the atmosphere changed. Paul looked into the rearview mirror and saw Ana Maria and Mateo kissing and embracing. That moment altered the course of everything. Paul felt disrespected and hurt, and his frustration became clear as his tone grew sharper. Julian, seated beside him, also began reacting, adding to the rising tension inside the car. Suddenly, Paul hit the brakes, bringing the vehicle to a stop on Route 89. He turned around and ordered Ana Maria and Mateo to get out. Around 1:15 a.m., people passing along Route 89 noticed a young woman lying motionless on the ground. She was on her back, arms outstretched, with dust on her clothes and traces of blood visible. Some stopped to check whether she was still breathing, while others immediately called emergency services. According to the first responders at the scene, she was still alive. Her eyelids trembled and her lips moved slightly, as if she was trying to speak. She showed clear signs of serious trauma across her body. The most severe injury was to her head, with noticeable swelling and bruising on one side of her skull, along with bleeding from the injury site. The other side of her face was also affected, with swelling around one eye and visible abrasions on her cheek. Her arms and shoulders had marks consistent with possible restraint or attempts to defend herself. According to the medics who arrived at the scene, the primary impact appeared to have been to the back of her head, indicating a critical and life-threatening condition. Witnesses who called emergency services later gave conflicting accounts. Some reported seeing a car speeding away around the corner, while others said the body seemed to appear suddenly on the road, with no screams or audible impact. Emergency responders arrived about 10 minutes later. Paramedics quickly assessed her condition and determined she needed immediate transport. She had no identification or phone on her, so her identity was unknown at the time. She was taken to the nearest facility, Captiva Hospital, where doctors confirmed a severe traumatic brain injury. They also observed significant brain swelling, which greatly reduced her chances of survival. After the initial evaluation, she was transferred to Sim Bolvar Hospital, where some of the city's leading neurosurgeons were based. She was transferred there early that morning, but her condition continued to worsen hour by hour. Despite all efforts to stabilize her, the swelling in her brain increased as doctors worked to save her life. Across the city, Ana Maria's mother, Nidia Romero, was still trying to reach her, unaware that her daughter was already in critical condition, and that the phone she kept calling would never be answered again. Nidia had barely slept that night. Her worry grew with each unanswered call. She dialed Ana Maria's number repeatedly and sent message after message, but received nothing in return. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was staying at a friend's house, maybe her phone had died, but deep down she felt something was wrong. On the morning of March 5th, her fear turned into devastating news. Nidia received a call from Paola Ramirez, the last person who had seen Ana Maria the night before. Her voice was shaky and panicked, but she managed to convey the key information. Something had happened to Ana Maria. According to her, Mateo Reyes had called and said Ana Maria had suffered a head injury and was in a hospital. Nidia struggled to fully take in what she was hearing. Her thoughts quickly spiraled with questions. She asked Paola which hospital Ana Maria had been taken to, but Paola didn't know, as Mateo hadn't shared that detail. Nidia felt panic rise sharply, and time seemed to slow as she realized every minute could matter. Still, she had no clear answers. She urged Paola to find out where her daughter was immediately. Paola agreed and ended the call. Minutes felt like hours. Nidia couldn't sit still. She paced the room, repeatedly calling Ana Maria's number, but there was still no response. She began reaching out to her daughter's friends, hoping someone might have information, but no one knew anything concrete. Her anxiety deepened, her thoughts became disorganized, and her heart raced. She tried to hold on to the hope that it was all a misunderstanding and that everything would soon be explained. Then her phone rang again. It was Paula. Her voice was tense as she explained that Ana Maria had been transferred to Sim Bolvar Hospital, though she wasn't sure where she had been before that. Nydia didn't hesitate. She grabbed her belongings and rushed out of the house. The taxi ride to the hospital felt endless, and she couldn't stay still the entire way. She kept checking her phone repeatedly for any new messages or missed calls. Everything felt painfully slow, as if time itself was working against her. Her thoughts kept spiraling: what had happened, who had been with Ana Maria, and why no one had informed her sooner. When Nydia arrived at the hospital, she went straight to the emergency intake desk and asked about her daughter. The nurse responded with sympathy and asked her to wait briefly. Those few seconds felt endless. Then a doctor arrived and asked her to follow him into a private room. He gently asked if her daughter had any identifying features, tattoos, scars, or anything distinctive. Nydia didn't immediately understand why he was asking. A growing sense of unease built up inside her. She told him her daughter had several tattoos, including one bearing her father's name. The doctor took a deep breath, looked at her, and said they had done everything possible, but her brain had not survived the trauma. She had been declared brain dead. The words were clear, but their meaning didn't register immediately. Nydia froze. Her mind went blank as she struggled to accept what she was hearing. Slowly, she shook her head, hoping she had misunderstood, that there had been a mistake, or that they were speaking about someone else. She tried to speak again, but the words wouldn't come. They led her to a glass window where a body lay. When she looked through it, something inside her broke. Ana Maria's face was bruised, one eye swollen, with clear signs of a severe head injury. It was her daughter. There was no mistake. For a few seconds, she felt nothing, followed by a numbing shock and then overwhelming anguish. A deep sense of helplessness took over as she tried to process what she was seeing, but her mind couldn't comprehend it. There was no one there who could clearly explain what had happened. Hours after receiving the devastating news, Nydia began hearing conflicting accounts. Different people gave different versions, none of which aligned. No one could provide a clear explanation of what had happened to her daughter that night. The first person she spoke to was Paula Ramirez. Ana Maria's friend explained that she had left the bar that night with Paul Naranjo, Julian Northigan, and Mateo Reyes. That detail was crucial. Nydia immediately began to wonder, if her daughter had been with them, where were they now? Why hadn't any of them contacted her? Why was the only call she received from Paola? She realized she would have to start asking those questions herself. Later, Ana Maria's ex-boyfriend Felipe called. He had also begun trying to understand what happened and managed to speak with Mateo Reyes. Mateo claimed he had seen Ana Maria fall out of the car. He even said he had been following the vehicle in a taxi and witnessed the moment she fell. However, that version of events immediately raised serious doubts. Why hadn't he called for help? Why hadn't he contacted her family immediately? Nydia started to feel that something didn't add up. The story seemed inconsistent, and her instincts told her someone wasn't being honest. She made a decision: she would fight for answers. Ana Maria's mother began contacting law enforcement, urging them to open an investigation. She wanted the people who had been in the car with her daughter to be questioned. She needed to understand exactly how her daughter ended up on that road. In the days that followed, she spoke to reporters, gave interviews, and shared her grief publicly. She refused to remain silent. In her view, Ana Maria hadn't simply fallen from a car, and she was determined to ensure that anyone responsible would be held accountable. When investigators began examining the circumstances of Ana Maria Castro's death, the first individuals they brought in for questioning were those who had been with her that night. Paul Naranjo, Julian Ortega, and Mateo Reyes were the first to be questioned. Their statements were crucial in reconstructing what had happened inside the car and how Ana Maria ended up on Route 89. Paul Naranjo was the first to give his account. He admitted picking Ana Maria up from the bar, but said he did not expect Mateo to join them. According to Paul, a disagreement began in the car after he noticed Ana Maria being affectionate with Mateo. He claimed they were kissing, which angered him. Paul said he pulled over and told them to get out of the car. He maintained that he used no force, made no threats, and did not physically touch her. He stated that after Ana Maria and Mateo got out, he and Julian drove away. However, Paul's version of events did not clearly explain how. Just moments later, Ana Maria was discovered on the road with life-threatening injuries. Julian Northagen supported Paul's version of events, confirming there had been tension in the car and that the driver had pulled over to let Ana Maria and Mateo out. However, when pressed about what happened afterward, Julian had no clear answers. When police questioned Mateo Reyes, his account was completely different. At first, he denied being in the car at all, claiming instead that he had been following the vehicle in a taxi and personally witnessed Ana Maria fall onto the road. This statement immediately raised concerns. If he truly saw her fall, why didn't he call emergency services immediately, go to her aid, or notify her family? Not long after, Mateo changed his account. He admitted he had been in the car, but insisted Ana Maria had fallen out on her own. He couldn't explain exactly how it happened, but maintained that no one had pushed her. Investigators were now convinced that someone was not being truthful. To get closer to the facts, they needed physical evidence. Police obtained surveillance footage. Route 89 was partially covered by street cameras, though not all angles captured the entire sequence. Still, what they recovered proved important. In one recording, Paul Naranjo's car is seen speeding down the street before suddenly stopping. Moments later, a figure is seen falling onto the road. However, the most significant detail was that no one was seen getting out of the car. This directly contradicted Paul's claim that he had simply dropped Ana Maria off. Investigators began to consider the possibility that she may have been pushed. Authorities ordered a forensic review, and medical experts concluded that Ana Maria's injuries were more consistent with a fall from a moving vehicle than with a simple stumble or collapse. These findings became significant evidence pointing toward Paul and Julian. However, the central question remained: what exactly happened in those final moments before the vehicle stopped? The accounts did not align, but one thing was clear: someone was not telling the truth. As the inconsistencies became more apparent, investigators intensified their efforts to uncover what had really occurred. Police reviewed surveillance footage, checked phone records and messages, re-interviewed witnesses, and searched for any additional clues that could explain Ana Maria Castro's final moments. One of the main focuses of the investigation became the behavior of the three men who were with Ana Maria that night. As authorities carried out deeper interrogations, more inconsistencies emerged. For example, if Paul and Julian claimed they had simply dropped off Ana Maria and Mateo, why didn't they attempt to check on them afterward to ensure everything was all right? Another question centered on Mateo's shifting statements, first claiming he was in a taxi following behind, and later admitting he had actually been inside the car. Meanwhile, public pressure was increasing. The media began covering the case, and the public demanded answers and accountability. Similar high-profile cases were revisited in the discussion, particularly the tragic case of Luis Anders Colmenares, a young man who died under unclear circumstances after a party in Bogotá. With growing national attention, the prosecutor's office accelerated the legal proceedings. Formal charges were filed, and those at the center of the case were placed under intense judicial scrutiny. Investigators presented evidence suggesting Ana Maria could not have fallen from the car accidentally. However, the defense argued that there was insufficient direct proof and that the witness statements were too inconsistent to be fully reliable. The trial attracted widespread public interest. For a long time, the exact circumstances of that night remained unresolved. Still, one thing became increasingly clear. Someone was not being truthful, and the truth would eventually emerge. According to the most recent reports, on March 10, 2022, the 42nd District Criminal Court found Paul Naranjo and Julian Northagen guilty in connection with the death of Ana Maria Castro under aggravated circumstances. They each received a sentence of 41 years in prison. The court's ruling relied heavily on the testimony of witness Daniel Vega Nervosa, who claimed he saw Ana Maria being pushed from a moving vehicle onto the road. The judges also considered updated statements from Mateo Reyes, who eventually admitted that Ana Maria had not left the car willingly. In addition, other evidence was presented suggesting a possible motive involving jealousy from Paul Naranjo, further strengthening the prosecution's case. In my opinion, this case feels less like a tragic accident and more like a chain of reckless decisions fueled by ego, jealousy, and indifference to human life. The conflicting stories, the shifting testimonies, and especially the failure of those present to immediately help Ana Maria all point toward a disturbing lack of accountability in those critical moments. Even if the initial intent wasn't to kill, the actions that followed, abandoning her, delaying help, and attempting to distort the truth, reflect a level of negligence that becomes morally indistinguishable from direct harm. What stands out most is how quickly a moment of emotional tension escalated into irreversible consequences, exposing how dangerous impulsive behavior can become when combined with intoxication and fragile pride. In the end, this case is not just about what happened inside that car, but about how easily responsibility was avoided when it mattered most.